Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us here in person and also live streaming from wherever you may be. I want to welcome you to today's Lunch and Learn. I first want to thank our Lunch and Learn sponsor, MCK CPAs and Advisors, and also our live stream sponsor, WGLT, your local public media, which is part of the NPR network. This program is being live streamed and recorded, so if you don't want it to live forever on the internet, mind your P's and Q's, please. Today, I'm super excited. This May is Preservation Month, and so we're thrilled to have Dawn Peters with us, who has been a member of the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission since 2021 and a realtor since 2016. She has a passion for period homes and has helped many clients buy and sell older homes in our community. So take a seat, join us, and without further ado, Dawn Peters.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you all for coming to the Lunch and Learn today. I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to talk about because preservation is such a wide topic. And so I yes, it's going to be on historic homes, but it's also going to be more on preservation resources. I will try to mind my P's and Q's since this is streamed on the internet and will live forever, but I'm typically pretty casual, so you're probably going to see that. Like Candace said, who am I? My name is Dawn Peters. I am a local real estate agent since 2016. I also serve on the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission. Anything I say today is my opinion or my own resource. My own research does not reflect either the city of Bloomington or Keller Williams. So how did I get here today? How did I get the honor of speaking in front of you and being considered a old house lover and expert? I mean, other than Candace asking me. So growing up, I had an interest in architecture. I thought maybe I would be an architect. I would love designing homes. I would love going to the library, looking through magazines and books. That kind of fell by the wayside as I got older, pursued a degree in engineering from the U of I, and worked in that field for many years afterwards. It wasn't until I moved here in 2002, 2003, and my ex-partner and I started looking for a home. She owned a 1920s bungalow over in Founders Grove, and I kind of enjoyed like the old house charm. So we started looking for older homes. We looked in White Place Historic District, we looked in Jefferson Davis, put in a couple offers. And then we heard about the Old House Society and their plans to move and restore the Oscar and Sara Mandel house. We followed that story along, and in June of 2004, we went to the annual house tour that they have. We toured the home, then we finished the rest of the tour, and then we came back. We just were drawn to it. 2 days later, we reached out to the Old House Society, asked how we could get involved, collaborate with them, and actually bring the project to fruition. Little did I know at the time that would stir up this passion for older houses and preservation, and eventually lead me to this career in real estate and standing here in front of you guys today. Why today? Like Candace said, today is Preservation Month. So Preservation Month began in May of 1973 as just a week. And then 2005, it switched to the entire month of May. President Nixon's actually the one who signed the resolution into law, and his wife, Pat, read the presidential proclamation. As the pace of change, it's very timely for where we are today. As the pace of change accelerates in the world around us, Americans more than ever need a lively awareness of our roots and origins in the past on which to base our sense of identity in the present and our directions in the future. So what exactly is historic preservation? Historic preservation is the act of identifying, protecting, and maintaining buildings, landscapes, and artifacts that have historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. It's way more than just houses, right? It's the building we're in, And this slide covers like the wide scope. All of this is courtesy of the National Park Service. Covers a wide scope. Commercial buildings, residential, lighthouses, cemeteries, monuments, public art, even things like documents, manuscripts, maps, railroads, shipyards, and even historic events and folklore traditions. Historic preservation has 4 core ideas. Those are protecting our heritage, connecting our past to our future, promoting sustainability, a big topic right now, and preserving craftsman and architectural beauty. Shameless plug for my own craftsmanship and architectural beauty from the Mandel house. Here you can see the first picture on the left. We have an intricately carved newel post, wooden staircase. You can kind of see in the bottom corner a built-in bench seat. In the middle, we have a terracotta fireplace, arts and crafts style, beam ceilings on the wood beam ceilings. And then here we have, again, historic woodwork, door, and then a fancy built-in buffet there in that dining room. Like I said, a lot of this was courtesy of the National Park Service. So historic preservation has been around for years. Many countries are far ahead of us. But here in this country, a lot of the guidelines, standards, everything has kind of flowed from the U.S. Department of Interior and the National Park Service. So they have 2 main resources that I'm going to highlight today. One is preservation briefs. There are actually 52 preservation briefs available on the National Park Service website. These cover everything from masonry, roofing, repair of historic wooden windows, how to clean our buildings and our surfaces, to accessibility, energy efficiency, and the most recent one is on new building codes for historic and existing buildings. I could probably do a lunch and learn every day this month on one of these preservation briefs, is how extensive that is. Will they get the slides? Will people get the slides if they want them? They can. They're online. Okay. So I put a bunch of links on these slides and then also at the end. So if you're interested in further information on any of this, all of my resources will be there. So the Secretary of Interior standards, so the preservation briefs are some guidance, guidelines to use, information keeps being added to that. But the real core of the Secretary of Interior's work for historic properties are what's called the standards. So there are 4 treatments that are considered on these standards, and they're referenced by every governing body across the country when it comes to grant funding, when it comes to certificate of appropriateness for preservation work. These are used by preservationists in the private sector. These standards are highly referenced across the country. So the first standard is preservation. You'll notice these go kind of in the order from the lightest amount of work to the heaviest alteration of our historic resources. So preservation is the act of applying measures necessary to sustain the existing form and integrity. So that's something's already intact, and we're just preserving what that property is and what that specific detail is. Rehabilitation is taking that product that may need repair, may need alterations, and rehabilitating those, making alterations, like I said, for new uses while retaining the historic character of the building. The third one is restoration. I think we use restoration a lot, generally speaking, to kind of cover anything up to the point of restoration. When I say, when I reference the Mandel house, I say we restored it. We've done, a couple slides from now, you'll see a little bit more of that. We've done more than just restore. But it's the act of accurately depicting the form, features, and character of a property as it appears in the period. So this includes everything from preserving the materials and then removing materials from other periods. Can get into a sticky situation when we start talking about, was that addition added at a time that now it has changed the character enough that we would still consider that historic. For the Historic Preservation Commission, we consider any building 50 years or older historic. So I'm historic at this point, which is hard to grasp, but that's fine. And then the last one, and the most intrusive, the most alterations, is complete reconstruction. So this can be seen by detailing and rebuilding features of a non-surviving site, landscape, or building. I saw a great example of this. I was in Budapest in December, and the Buda Castle was bombed in World War II. And there were areas of the castle that were completely destroyed, and there were some that were still intact. And the restorationists there had reconstructed areas, and there were mixes of these buildings that were some old and some new. And you would have a whole new wall next to an original wall, and it was fascinating for a preservation nerd to see. So when you're trying to choose which treatment to use for a historic property out of those four that I mentioned, these are the levels, the considerations that are, the things that are taken into consideration. The first one is the level of significance. This is something that we use a lot at the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission when we're determining, sadly, if a property is going to be approved for a demolition permit, or if we're designating we're recommending designation of a local landmark. What we're looking at for significance is, was a property involved, was a significant person involved in the property, right? So there are some houses here that, maybe Abe Lincoln was in, or just different history related to a significant person. Was the architect, the designer of the home, significant? The Mandel house was designed by George Miller. So his house, George Miller's home on West Market, is both a significant architect, designed by a significant architect, and also a significant person in our Bloomington normal history. Was there a significant event involved there, right? So we are, land of Lincoln here. Sometimes there are things that where speeches were made that might be significant. Characteristics of the architectural style, design, craftsmanship, or specific innovation in architecture. Then after that, we've got physical condition. So is it in a status that makes restoration and saving feasible? What is the proposed use of the property? And then any building codes, regulatory considerations. So you use these determinations to determine which treatment you're going to pursue. So back to my house, my old house, no longer my house. We did both preservation and restoration. So you can see we took out historic wooden windows, rebuilt some of those, and then rehung those. We restored some of the historic wooden shingles. We did, you can see kind of in this top picture, or this bottom right picture, there's this decorative tin ribbon around the turret. and we had to rebuild some of that. And then lastly, in the bottom left corner, because of the move, we had to dismantle the masonry front porch and rebuild and reconstruct that. It's a fun project. So I want to talk a little bit about local historic preservation and the bodies that kind of govern that in the city of Bloomington and the town of Normal. So both the city and the town have historic preservation commissions that oversee historic preservation in the location. Bloomington's was established in 1983 and Normal's in 1990. They also both provide grant programs for homeowners, and I'll get into that a little bit. I thought it was interesting, though, that the city of Bloomington's grant came after the town of Normal's grant, even though their commission was established first. Obviously, since I'm on the commission for Bloomington, I have more knowledge about what goes on in that commission, but I can say that there's a lot of overlap between the two. In the city of Bloomington, we have kind of 4 categories of historic designations. We have a local historic property, which is an S4 overlay. We have historic districts. We have properties that are on the National Register of Historic Places, and we have properties that have been considered a national landmark. The town of Normal has similar. They have local landmarks instead of the S4. They have historic districts, they have properties on the National Register, and they have properties considered national landmark. An interesting designation between the two, which sometimes gets us realtors into trouble, is in Normal, all of the local landmarks and all of the historic properties in the historic districts are governed by the historic preservation ordinances. But in the city of Bloomington, whether or not the property is in a historic district doesn't matter. It's if it has the S4 historic overlay. So people say, I bought a house in White Place Historic District. Am I governed by the historic preservation ordinance? Only if you have the S4 designation. So what does a Historic Preservation Commission do? What are we responsible for? So we identify historically and architecturally significant properties using some of those categories I mentioned before when we talked about treatment. We can recommend them for designation. We advise and assist homeowners of designated properties, and this is both the city and the town pretty much do the same thing. We review applications for certificate of appropriateness for construction, alteration, removal, or demolition. This is anything on the exterior of a property. And then we administer the grant programs that are provided by the city and the town. So there are 2 residential grant programs. The city of Bloomington has a FUNC grant, and then the town of Normal has the Bone Historic Preservation Grant. Those are for designated properties. And then the city also offers in this kind of downtown area, both in and adjacent to the Bloomington Historic District, a Harriet Rust facade grant, which helps business owners in the downtown area improve the exteriors of their homes or of their businesses. When we moved the Mandel house, after it got settled, we applied for the S4 historic overlay with the city of Bloomington, and we were granted that. We were going through all this work. We wanted to preserve the work that we did so that it wouldn't be altered in the future. Along with that, we were able to utilize the grant program for roof, siding repair and restoration, for exterior paint, and also for gutters. So during that whole restoration project over many, many years, there were a lot of useful resources that we both used. YouTube videos right? So if you're working on your own historic home, YouTube videos are great, or just interested even in the topic. I learned how to do so much from videos. Public library, obviously, here I am, how many ever years later, finding myself back in the public library looking through magazines and books on houses. Websites, personal blogs. I have seen quite a growth in homeowners who want to help other old house homeowners through personal blogs. And then Facebook or other online groups. I'm a member of several different online old house groups, and I shamelessly created my own here in town. So we can ask questions and support each other. Right now, we are at about 2,000 members locally. So, some challenges in historic preservation. I need a drink. Before we start this topic, obviously funding limitations across the board. Shrinking pool of tradespeople with knowledge of old houses. And we don't have a lot of trades training or mentorship programs. There is a guy out of Missouri who has an old house school. I think his name's Bob Yap, and he will have sessions on rebuilding your windows, tuck pointing your masonry, but we really do not have enough people in the trades to support preservation of older homes. Balancing modernization with preservation, right? We look at, do we want to live maybe more comfortably, or I brought up demolition. Do we want to make way for a new development? There are some concerns on how to balance those needs. Regulatory hurdles and property rights. This is one where, as a realtor, I get into a little catch-22 because realtors are huge proponents of personal property rights. And as a preservationist, I don't think you should be able to just do anything you want with your property. So, and then obviously, right along with our funding limitation, rising material costs, right? I mean, rebuilding things is getting ever increasingly expensive. But how can you guys support historic preservation? Advocate locally, right? Come to the lunch and learns, attend public meetings, come to our Historic Preservation Commission. If we are designating a property or reviewing a demolition permit and you have a feeling about it, come speak up. Join or support preservation organizations. So there's many. I've got several of them listed in the resource slide at the end. Locally, we have the Old House Society. We have Landmarks Illinois. I'm a member of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. You can learn and financially support and volunteer. Promote awareness and education, so you can get involved. Candace and I were just talking about organized tours. She does a tour of downtown Bloomington. Participate in community events that celebrate local history. And if you're really adventurous, you can maintain and restore your own property. Those days are over for me. I have a 1970s ranch right now, which is also 50 years old, so we can consider that historic. Now, I don't know that I'm going to get it designated, but so little before and after. So this is the house when it was sitting at 507 East Washington prior to the move, starting to fall into some disrepair. And then this was nowhere near finished, but looked a lot better in 2011, so seven years later. And then I just want to close with this quote that I picked up off of the National Historic Preservation. We recognize that we are collective agents of history, and that history cannot be deleted like web pages. Our history is important. And there is all of our resource slides. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Questions?
Yes, and if you have questions, let me come to you with the microphone so that our viewers online can also hear your questions. Raise your hand if you have any. Okay, stand by.
Is the Mandel house the one that they moved down
Yes.
Grove Street?
Yep, moved from 507 East Washington to 402 Grove. 3 blocks, over 7 hours. It was actually recorded by the History Channel for Mega Movers, and you can, I think it's on YouTube.
Yes, it is. I've watched it.
Yeah, you can watch the video on YouTube. That's all right. I want to let you repeat the question for the online.
I was just curious if the video you're referencing shows how deep they dug the foundation to replace it, put the footings, etc.
So it doesn't show a lot of detail. It focuses more on the move. But I can tell you we had the property surveyed, we had an excavator come out, place where the house was going to be, dug out where the foundation would be, framed out, poured the footings, and then the house was moved over the footings, and the concrete block was built up to match the house.
Any other questions?
What's one way that we could advocate to get a more trained labor force that knows how to do historic preservation?
Great question. I think about that often, and I keep toying with the idea of creating a nonprofit that helps that. I have a home services business that I've partnered with a contractor on to help homeowners of all types with their projects. And one of the things we're talking about adding and growing in that is some type of mentorship and training. I'm thinking something even along the lines how Heartland has done some automotive training because of Rivian, because of the businesses that we have here. Can we partner with local education already? Michaela's got another question.
Other than the homes that you mentioned in your presentation, do you have any other favorite old homes that you'd like to give a shout out to in town?
We were searching for a home in 2000. It's like 2003 to 2004, and so we made a couple offers, like I said, on property in White Place Historic District, in Jefferson Davis Historic District, and I started going to open houses. And even after we got this house and moved it, I kept going to open houses, particularly in old homes. So fast forward to 2016 when I decided that a career in real estate was for me. I had already been in many of the older homes, all of the ones that had sold since 2004. So locally, I can't name any specific ones. I love them so. I mean, 1111 Fell. It's the Richardson Romanesque over by Fell Park in the White Place Historic District. I tried to buy that before we bought this. All the George Miller houses. So I brought up George Miller. We did a tour of George Miller homes. There's 3 of them now on Grove Street. Fantastic Victorian architecture. I'm also, like I said, I have a mid-century ranch now, so I've kind of shifted into that, 50s, 60s, 70s. This fantastic house on Parkview just came on the market. That is like perfect mid-century style. So I don't know, I'm all over the place. When I travel, I go check out, I'm that person.
What's the biggest difference that you've seen moving from like a Victorian and older 100+ year home to like a mid-century modern construction home?
Maintenance. I'm gonna be honest, owning an older home is not for the faint of heart, or pocketbook. And fortunately, right, that's why I wanted to bring up like the grant resources. We were actually able also to utilize, the state of Illinois has a property tax incentive if you're doing a substantial restoration on a property that is designated a local landmark. So since we had that local landmark designation, we were able to provide receipts to the assessor and apply for a property tax relief. Basically kept our property taxes the same for 8 years, and then gradually brought it up over the next 4 years to realize the full. But yeah, maintenance. It's hard for me as a real estate agent when I'm showing an older home. I had a home inspector who came to inspection for one of my clients and said, "You're going to have to budget to replace these 100-year-old windows." So we had to have a little talk afterwards. I mean, it is your home, right? I believe in private property rights, and I believe in historic preservation. So when that does happen, I provide them resources on how they can restore their historic windows and how they're just as energy efficient. They can be just as energy efficient as new ones. So.
Any other questions? Oh, yes.
Speaking of the cost of preserving, if you're in a historic district, has the prices come down, for instance, of replacing the windows that are approved by the Historical Society, which sometimes we call the Hysterical Society, but just curious, because it seems as if the prices to replace things in homes in a historic district are almost too much.
Yeah, I mean, there's a balance, right? All window replacements are expensive, whether you're replacing them with historically accurate wooden windows, or repairing them, or you're putting in vinyl windows, and it's a hard decision. There are hardship exceptions. I at least know for the city of Bloomington that you can apply for to alleviate some of that expense. Yep. Yeah. So if you're in the city of Bloomington, I know that for the city. I don't know that specifically for the town. But if you're in the city of Bloomington, contact the office and talk to them about it.
Don, this may or may not be a question. It might be a suggestion. What I would love to see is another presentation that perhaps shows slides and pictures of where the historic districts are in Bloomington and Normal, and perhaps some of the key homes and features of each one.
I could do that. We could do a whole other. It was when I was going through the slides, I was like, do I do that? But yeah, we could do that. All right, fine. I'll do another presentation. I love it so much.
The
I
museum.
could also tell you what they are. No, go ahead, Candace.
I was going to say, in addition to Dawn's expertise, the museum's librarian, Bill Kemp, also does a couple talks on some of the local neighborhoods as well. So there's lots of great stuff out there.
Yes, let's have Bill do a here or the.
As I embarrass him. Yes.
Well, I didn't realize Bill was in the back. Bill, there was something going on with, there was going to be a exhibit with the modular homes of Fairway Knolls and that area and stuff like that. Is that still happening?
So I think you're referring to an exhibit we did have planned called Best Laid Plans. Dr. Alan Lessoff in the ISU History Department was working on that with our former, recently retired curator of exhibits, Susan Hartzold. And Alan had some health issues and additional health issues, and that got put on the back burner. Alan's back to full health and back working on the project, but we don't have that exhibit scheduled at the moment. I believe he still has that as a book project through the Southern Illinois University Press, though. So it's still, for Alan, Dr. Lessoff, it's an ongoing active project. So someday it may appear here as an exhibit as well.
Excellent. Okay. Any last questions? Nope. Wonderful. Well, I'm sure if you do have any questions, Dawn will happily answer them after this program. Once again, thank you, Dawn, for coming and sharing your expertise and your knowledge with us, and to MCK CPAs and Advisors, our sponsor for the Lunch and Learn, and WGLT for our live stream. I do want to give a plug to our online architecture tour on Tourient through our website, where you can take that downtown architecture tour on your own, also a tour of Lincoln sites here in town. We will have our next Lunch and Learn on June 5th with Buck Farley, who is the archivist at State Farm, and he's going to show us how insurance is interesting and exciting with stories. I know, with stories from the vault. He's got some great stories from State Farm, and we're super excited that he's coming to share them. And also on June 7th, our first Friday, we'll be celebrating history of downtown here at the museum. You can find all of that information on our website, makehistory.org, or for those of you in the room, the lovely flyers at your table. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again.